Man, you're my attorney. I need you to spell it out for me. Who's Nintendo gonna sue?
Well, DeAndre, the answer is quite simple.
Well, it's about time we get our hands a little dirty here on Frosted Freaks and be the last to hop on a Soulja Boy train. Now then, you might already know, early last month, Soulja Boy released a game console called the Soulja Boy Game, essentially an emulation machine that supposedly had over 800 games, including SNES and NES titles, not to mention GBA, GB, all those fun ones that belong to Nintendo. He then decided to not double, not triple, but quadruple down and released the Soulja Boy Handheld, the Soulja Retro Mini, and the Fuze. He claimed that they were his and that he made them, but as the internet was very quick to find out, these were all drop-shipped items from an offshore warehouse located somewhere in China. This would be the reason why so many of the unfortunate few who actually purchased the system had to wait so long for its arrival. It was then discovered that there were a multitude of pirated games on the system, and in stepped Nintendo. Now, after a month of running wild with these systems, DeAndre's kingdom would fall with a cease and desist order letter given by assumedly Nintendo lawyers. Now, today I want to talk about Mr. DeAndre Cortez Soulja Boy way and exactly what kind of trouble he is in, and give a rough estimate on how much he will end up owing the monolith that is Nintendo. First off, I'm going to put a little asterisk in here. I'm not a lawyer. I just found all this information through studying a bunch of laws and looking into the Federal Copyright Act, which I highly recommend you guys thumb through. It's quite an interesting read. So this is just a prediction. This is just what I feel is going to happen based on the information that I've gathered. So sit tight. Now, digging into the systems and the research I had done on him, had he not claimed any of these items were his, and that he had made them, had he not sold them on his website, he would be in a little less trouble. However, Mr. Way, being the entrepreneur that he is, would find himself boasting that the consoles were indeed legitimate his and in no way pirated material. He even went as far as to lie and state that he had permission from the IP's originators and that he was fully allowed to sell them. He would often do this in the form of word vomit on Twitter. Now, not only does the evidence of him taking full ownership happen there, but he even went as far as to slap his label on every device. Regardless that it is a sticker over an original title or not, he still claimed ownership and profited off of stolen IP, which makes him fully liable for any loss in profit or damages done to the corporations that own those IPs. Now let's go even deeper, and I love going deep. Let's take a look at one of the systems I found interesting, and that is the Soulja Boy Handheld. It's stated to be able to play over a staggering 3,000 different titles, and to me, that is impressive on its own. But after watching a few videos, I started noticing familiar titles. Mario, Castlevania, Pokemon, Mega Man, Zelda, Street Fighter, Neo Geo classics like Metal Slug. And that's when my mind started ticking and thinking that there would be no way he could afford the licenses to produce these titles. Don't get me wrong, Soulja Boy is worth $30 million and could potentially procure the rights to some of these titles, but the likelihood of Nintendo giving up any of them is very impossible, especially with the recent releases of the NES and SNES Classic Mini last year. I decided to watch a YouTuber by the name of Madlittlepixel do an unboxing of the system and looked at some of the titles that were showing up on the screen as he powered on the system. One of the titles that he ended up playing was a CPS whatever that is game called The Punisher. Now then, here comes some pretty damning evidence that this stuff was pirated. On the startup of the game, there's a warning section that is always available for everyone who starts any game, and that is the Copyright Act. Now then, it states, and I quote, "This game is for use in all countries excluding the United States of America, Canada, the United Mexican States, and all countries of Central and South America and Japan. Sales, export, or operation inside these countries may be construed as copyright and trademark infringement and is strictly prohibited. Violators are subject to severe penalties and will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Well, gee, that's weird. For a person who procured the rights to these, it seems a little conflicting to have a warning screen on your game stating that you can't sell it in the area you're selling it. Huh. Seems a little weird. Now then, let's get into one of my favorite parts. Let's take a look at that copyright law just for a second and what violations we are looking at now, shall we? Intellectual property law deals with the rules of securing and enforcing legal rights to inventions, designs, and artistic works. Just as the law protects ownership of personal property and real estate, so too does it protect the exclusive control of intangible assets. Copyright infringement is the act of violating any copyright owner's exclusive right granted by the Federal Copyright Act. There are 3 elements that must be in place in order for the infringement to occur. The copyright holder must hold a valid copyright. They do. The person who allegedly infringing must have access to the copyright work. They did. And the duplication of the copyright work must be outside the exceptions. It was. Now here's the part you guys are looking for, and that is the legal penalties that Mr. Wei will be facing. The infringer pays the actual dollar amount of damages and profit. The law provides a range from $200,000 to $150,000 for each work infringed. Infringer pays for all attorney fees and court costs. The court can issue an injunction to stop the infringing acts. The court can compound in illegal works, and the infringer can go to jail. What's that? Jail time? Well, it's just simple copyright, isn't it? Nope! According to the U.S. Department of Justice, first-time copyright infringement cases can carry a fine up to $250,000 and up to 5 years in prison. If you get caught more than once in a copyright infringement case, you could face additional fines up to $250,000 and up to 10 years in prison. So what we're looking at here is a potential jail time and a hefty fines for each stolen work. That's every individual file on each system. Let's run that back again. Just from the titles alone, he could be facing an overall $250,000 fine and a fine up to $150,000 for each individual piece of stolen work. Now then, it doesn't stop there because Wei had made profit off the stolen IPs, so it gets better. One of the handheld he had claimed was his and slapped his branding over was the Soulja Boy Retro Mini. Now then, does it look a little familiar? Just a little familiar? Even just a little familiar? Well, it should! That's because it is an exact replica of the Game Boy Pocket, in physical form at least. Minus the black and white screen and the fact that he added shoulder buttons which are completely inoperable. There is a patent on this product, and you bet your bottom dollar that Nintendo will go after him for this one as well. This will allow Nintendo to sue for compensatory damages, royalty, and attorney fees as well. In other words, all profit that was gained through the sale of these will go directly to, you guessed it, Nintendo. But wait! There's more! Because Mr. Wei had been convicted of crimes in the past, including the violation of probation, he's shown himself to have repetitious behavior of criminal activities and a lacking of legal knowledge. Not only that, the blatant disrespect and carelessness he had shown towards Nintendo, even calling them out in a tweet stating that Nintendo ain't gonna read the Bible, will have any court swinging heavily in Nintendo's favor. The other issue is that he could be looking at not just a lawsuit from Nintendo, but a class action lawsuit from Nintendo and every company he stole from as well. Not to mention another class action lawsuit that could fall underneath false advertising, as he advertises systems to be able to handle Switch and 3DS games, which they cannot. Advertised on one of the systems that he said it could handle 4K, which after 720p, it sputters into digital oblivion. And this could get you into a lot of trouble with your consumers. Now, with all this knowledge that we just accrued, let's crunch some numbers basing our information off of one system, and that is the Soulja Boy Handheld. Again, it stated that it had over 3,000 games, and I had not found any list to confirm that, but let's assume that 1,300 of those titles were Nintendo titles, which is perfectly viable as there were 679 different titles for the NES and 721 titles for the SNES. Let's assume that he managed to jam-pack all of those titles into one little system. First, let's look at the median penalty for each stolen IP. So let's say that's $75,000 for each stolen game on one system. To solve this, we're going to use the power of multiplication. And just in the median range, we're looking at $97,500,000. Just one system. And that's just the median, but we're talking about Nintendo, and Nintendo doesn't screw around. They're going to try to go for the maximum, so we're going to increase that number to 150,000, multiply it to the 1,300 that we had, and that gives us a whopping $195 million for one system, One system alone, not even including the other 3 that have copyright issues on them. And since he can stand trial for each title repeated along all 4 systems as well, he could be looking at a potential lawsuit of $500 million plus. And since this is a repeated offense since he released 4 systems, he could be looking at anywhere between 20 and 30 years in prison. The thought process now is, could he avoid all of this and settle out of court? Well, the answer is yes and no. See, the first issue he runs into is Nintendo recently sued an Arizona couple for $12 million for distributing ROMs on 2 different websites. And that was their settlement. Nintendo wanted to sue them for $100 million. Of course, we're talking on a regular couple somewhere in Arizona that could not afford that. And their settlement was $12 million. That's almost half of what Soulja Boy's worth. And if you don't think for a second they will make an example of him, you're dead wrong. That, topped with the knowledge of him knowingly selling stolen IPs, will serve him a new nickname for the future, which is Soulja Broke! In a string of tweets, you can see him claiming that he knows what he's doing, that he isn't wrong, and that we're all just haters. Now, this is my message to DeAndre. DeAndre, let's talk for a second. You have no idea what you're doing. If you just had an iota of common sense, you would realize you have no understanding of the copyright laws. And here's an example of how I know that. In your annoying 2007 video Crank That, you'll realize that the Superman logo on your coat and the guy who was actually wearing the Superman suit were blurred out. Why? Maybe because you didn't have the right to use it. Thankfully, somebody caught that for you and blurred them out. But because, and I truly believe this, you got way too big, way too fast, you ended up pushing all those people that would check you out of the way with the thought process that you think you know what you're doing. Then you surrounded yourself with people who think like you. The downside is when you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, there is no one there to check you. If you had a lawyer during this whole situation, I can imagine them. I can picture them in my head on their knees, begging, imploring you to stop being an idiot for 3 seconds and actually think before you act. But you chose not to. Instead, you went to Twitter. And that's when you started making homophobic phrases and calling anybody a racist that didn't agree with you. In early December, you even had Shopify deny your product to be sold on their website. Why? Well, according to you, it's because they're racist. But in reality, they didn't want to get hit with a lawsuit that you're about to not be able to afford. I don't think you learned a thing through this whole situation. As a matter of fact, at the end of it, I can picture you confused, broke, and begging anybody to help you. And they won't. You're in this so deep that no one's going to want to associate with you after this for fear of becoming an accomplice. With the amount you're going to owe, I would expect garnishments from your past project and any future endeavor that you're going to be seeking out as well. And just like any college student that actually went out and got their education, you're going to be in debt forever. Hide in Dubai all you want. Eventually, you're going to have to come home. Dream's over, my friend. Time to wake up. I've been Frosted Friction. That's my editorial for today. If you guys are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like. If you didn't like this video, leave me a hypothetical like. I'll take it. I look forward to a conversation in the comments section below. I also have a Twitter. Please check that out. And I also have a Discord server. I highly recommend you check that out as well. All links will be located in the description below. You guys have been great. You guys have been fantastic. And as usual and as always, my friends, stay frosty and keep moving forward. Operations inside these countries may be constructed as copyright and trademark infringement and is strictly prohibited. It says that in the system!